Right now, the United States is facing a shocking betrayal. The European Union, Washington's biggest ally, has just joined Canada in a move that could permanently change America's dominance on the world stage. And if what we are hearing is true, this is just the beginning of a trade war that could send shockwaves across the global economy. What if I told you that the European Union and Canada, two of America's closest allies, are now planning something that Washington never saw coming? A direct challenge to U.S. power. And it is happening right now. The tension between these nations has been building for months, but no one expected this. A full-scale retaliation, billions of dollars at stake, and a shocking move that could leave Washington completely isolated. So what exactly did Europe just do? And why is Washington scrambling to respond? Stay with us, because what you are about to hear changes everything. Washington thought it had the upper hand. But what happens when you push a nation too far? Canada, America's oldest ally, just launched a counterstrike so bold it has sent shockwaves through global markets. In response to the sudden 25% tariff on all Canadian imports, Prime Minister Trudeau made a dramatic announcement, one that will cost American industries billions. Effective immediately, Canada has imposed a 25% tariff on $155 billion worth of U.S. goods, from agriculture to automobiles, and that is just the beginning. But here's where things get even more dangerous, because Canada is not just fighting back with tariffs. It is cutting America off. In a shocking move, Canada has just threatened to cut energy exports to the U.S., a decision that could leave millions of Americans in the dark. If Canada follows through on this, the United States could lose over 50 terawatt-hours of electricity overnight. That is enough to power New York, Michigan, and Minnesota combined. And it does not stop there, because Canada is shifting its oil trade straight to China. With the newly expanded Trans Mountain Pipeline, Canada can now send nearly 900,000 barrels per day straight to Asia. Meaning, for the first time in history, America is no longer Canada's top oil customer. But here is where things take a terrifying turn, because what Washington just did next will push this economic war into dangerous new territory. Washington is not backing down. If Canada thought it could outmaneuver the U.S., it just made a catastrophic miscalculation, because what happens next is nothing short of economic warfare. In a shocking escalation, the United States has just announced 3 devastating new measures that could cripple Canada's economy overnight. The next phase of Washington's plan: 100% tariffs on Canadian goods, from lumber to dairy. Every industry is now under attack, banning U.S. companies from trading with Canada, forcing businesses to cut ties overnight, freezing cross-border energy trade, blocking billions in oil and gas revenue. For decades, Canada and the United States have shared one of the closest economic partnerships in the world. That ends now, because Washington has just delivered the harshest economic blow in modern history. The impact is immediate and devastating. Canada's financial markets are in free fall, businesses are scrambling, and panic is spreading across the economy. For Canadian industries, the stakes could not be higher. With 77% of Canadian exports heading to the U.S., losing access to the American market is an economic death sentence. But here's the real twist, because Canada is not going down without a fight. Trudeau has just issued a response so bold, it could push this crisis into uncharted territory. Washington thought it had Canada cornered, but what happens next? Nobody saw coming. Washington thought Canada would fold under pressure. They were wrong. Because what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just announced changes everything. In a defiant move, Canada has just launched its largest ever trade retaliation against the United States. A move designed to cripple key U.S. industries and force Washington back to the negotiating table. Canada's counteroffensive plan, $155 billion in retaliatory tariffs, targeting U.S. agriculture, tech, and manufacturing, cutting off U.S. energy supply. restricting oil and gas exports to America, blocking U.S. companies from key contracts, striking at America's biggest corporations. And here's where it gets even more dangerous, because Trudeau just played his most powerful card. Yet, he is threatening to shut down critical oil exports to the U.S., cutting off a supply that fuels millions of American homes and businesses. Gas prices soaring, supply chains grinding to a halt, U.S. industries panicking. This is no longer just a trade dispute. This is an economic war. Who gets hit the hardest? U.S. auto industry. Ford, GM, and Tesla rely on Canadian parts. American farmers. Canadian tariffs target U.S. soybeans, wheat, and dairy. Silicon Valley. Tech giants like Apple and Microsoft face Canadian import restrictions, and the pressure is mounting. American industries are now begging Washington to back off, but the White House has other plans. Because what Trump just did next takes this conflict to an entirely new level. Washington is about to make a move so aggressive, so extreme, it could push this economic war to the point of no return. Canada fought back. But now, Washington is going all in. Because what President Trump just announced, it is not just retaliation, it is economic warfare. In a stunning escalation, the U.S. is unleashing a devastating economic crackdown designed to break Canada's resistance. These measures will not just impact trade, they could cripple entire industries. The next phase of Washington's plan, 100% tariffs on Canadian goods, from lumber to dairy. Every industry is now under attack, banning U.S. companies from trading with Canada, forcing businesses to cut ties overnight, freezing cross-border energy trade, blocking billions in oil and gas revenue. The message from Washington is clear. Canada must fall in line or face total economic isolation. But here is the real shock. Because these sanctions are not just about Canada. The U.S. is now threatening any country that continues doing business with Canada, including Europe and Asia. The global reaction, European Union. Furious, threatens retaliation if U.S. cuts off trade with Canada. China steps in, exploring deeper energy ties with Canada as U.S. tensions rise, stock markets crash, businesses. Worldwide panic over supply chain disruptions. This is no longer just about Canada. The entire world is watching. Washington's power move has sent shockwaves across global markets. And the consequences? They could be catastrophic. But here is where it gets even more dangerous. Because Canada? They are not backing down. And what Prime Minister Trudeau is about to do next could push this trade war past the point of no return. Washington made its move. But Canada, they are about to hit back hard. Because what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just announced? It is a retaliation unlike anything we have seen before. In a high-stakes countermeasure, Canada is unleashing a massive economic response, one that could send shockwaves through Washington and beyond. Canada's counterstrike. Plan $155 billion in U.S. import tariffs, targeting key American industries, from tech to agriculture, cutting energy exports to the U.S., blocking millions of barrels of oil from reaching American refineries, restricting U.S. access to Canada's critical minerals, a direct hit to American tech and defense sectors. For decades, Canada supplied the United States with cheap energy and vital resources. But now, that supply is about to be cut off. The energy war begins. Canada redirects oil exports to China. Beijing signs emergency crude oil deal with Ottawa. European Union steps in, seeking new agreements to replace lost U.S. trade. American consumers. Panic. Gas prices and inflation expected to surge. This energy war could leave American consumers paying the highest gas prices in history. But this is just the beginning. Canada's nuclear option. What happens if they go even further? Restricting water and electricity exports, a direct hit to U.S. infrastructure, blocking U.S. companies from Canada's markets, freezing out major American brands. Legal challenge at the WTO, bringing the fight to the international stage. Canada is sending a clear message. They will not be bullied. And if Washington thought Canada would fold under pressure, they could not have been more wrong. But here is where it gets even more dangerous. Because Washington's next move, it is not just about trade. What the US government is planning next could push this conflict into uncharted territory. Canada made their move, and now Washington is about to strike back with a decision so extreme it could push this conflict past the point of no return. The message from the Biden administration is clear. Canada will pay the price for its defiance. Because what Washington just approved? It is an all-out economic assault. The US retaliation plan. 100% tariffs on Canadian goods. From lumber to dairy, every industry is under attack. Banning US companies from trading with Canada. Forcing businesses to cut ties overnight. Freezing cross-border energy trade. Blocking billions in oil and gas revenue. For decades, the US and Canada built one of the strongest economic partnerships in history. But now, that alliance is crumbling at breakneck speed. The shockwaves hit America. Major US retailers forced to drop Canadian products. Massive shortages expected US farmers sound the alarm. Fear of losing their biggest export. Market Wall Street reacts. Stock markets spiral as trade war fears explode. The consequences are catastrophic. American retailers are scrambling. Farmers are demanding emergency aid. And Wall Street? It is bracing for impact. The energy crisis explodes. US gas prices skyrocket. The cost of oil surges overnight. Power grid instability. Washington scrambles to replace lost Canadian electricity. Biden administration faces crisis. Political backlash mounts. With Canada cutting off vital oil and electricity supplies, millions of Americans could soon feel the impact in their wallets, their homes, and even their jobs. But here is where this trade war takes a truly dangerous turn, because what Washington is planning next. It is not just about money anymore. The next move could reshape global power for decades to come. This is not just a trade dispute anymore. It is an all-out economic war. And now the question is simple. Who will break first? Washington's ultimatum to Canada: end retaliatory tariffs immediately, or face full-scale trade isolation reverse. Energy export diversion to China, or lose critical US market access, submit to new trade rules, or risk total economic collapse. The White House is pushing Canada to the edge. Comply or be cut off completely. But here is where things get even more shocking, because Canada is not backing down. Canada's final response: expanding trade with China and EU, cutting the US out of critical deals selling energy resources elsewhere, securing new long-term contracts, legal action at the WTO, challenging US tariffs on a global stage. For decades, Canada relied on the United States. But now they are breaking free. This is no longer just about trade. It is about sovereignty, survival, and the future of a nation. The global aftershocks, US allies react. Will Europe back Canada or Washington? China takes advantage, expanding. Influence over North American trade world economy on edge. Global markets brace for long-term instability. No matter what happens next, this trade war has already changed the world. The United States and Canada are at a breaking point, and the fallout, it is just beginning. So, what do you think? Is Canada making the right move by standing up to the US? Or is Washington justified in its aggressive trade stance? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to subscribe for more exclusive deep dives into the world's biggest power struggles. See you in the next video.